Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. Cast. Me, myself and I, Nels. Old man, though he doesn't speak, Harriet. My husband and I rented display space in an antique consignment store for our collective side hustles. I quilt and crochet. My husband sells custom die-cast cars and diorama supplies. Every few weeks, we go in and restock our space. This store is very large and can be a bit of a maze, and the store has designated rest stops throughout the aisles. One is across from our space. The store does not provide mobility aids for customers, so it is a bio-policy if you need a walker or wheelchair. I'm a wheelchair user as I'm paralyzed from L2 psi. My husband and I were at the store restocking the space. My husband had just left to take one of our toadies out to our van, leaving me in our space sorting through my toad that the baby sets I make. When I hear someone huffing behind me, I didn't really pay too much attention to it, thinking that someone might have been taking a break at the rest stop. I was just finishing laying out my sets on the table in our space when the person at the rest stop decided to talk to me. Do you know if the store has wheelchairs for people to use? I look up from my task and see an elderly couple across from our space. The old man is standing next to the bench, looking kind of annoyed, while the woman is flopped on the bench in an I can't take another step kind of way. I honestly was concerned that she might have been having a medical issue as she was rather plump. Are you okay? I ask, about to tell her or her partner to use the phone above the bench to reach the staff desk for help. This store is too fucking big, Harriet exclaims. I can't walk anymore. Me. The store has a chair for medevac use. One of the employees could bring it to you if you need help leaving. Harriet. But we're not done shopping. Me. I don't think they have wheelchairs to borrow. They've had issues with rowdy kids riding mobility scooters, so they do not provide them. But if you use the phone above you, you can ask a staff member. Just dial 1 and it will connect you to the staff desk. There's a sign next to the said phone that states this. Harriet seems to be thinking about her options, so I go about my work. Nels wanders down the aisle, possibly looking for an escape route. Harriet, what about the wheelchair you're sitting in? Me, this is my personal wheelchair. It doesn't belong to the store. Harriet, can I borrow it? Me, what? Surely she's not asking to take my chair to go shopping. Harriet, I want to use the wheelchair. You're young enough that you could stand to walk for a bit. I'll bring it back. Me, ma'am, I cannot stand at all. I've been a paraplegic since I was 12. This wheelchair is not store issued. It's my personal property that cost a lot of money. If you call the staff, maybe they can let you use the medical chair, or maybe they know of one someone has in their space that you can buy. But I will not give you my chair and I cannot help you. At this point, I have rolled out of our space. I decided to head towards the vendor door and just leave. Rumor has it, Harriet is still sitting on the bench waiting for someone to give her a wheelchair. This happened about 10 years ago. I was 22 at the time and had to have knee surgery to clear out shredded cartilage about a week after my birthday. This story takes place 3 days after the surgery. My mom, a nurse important for later, my husband BF of 2 years at the time, and my best friend decided to take me shopping to try to get my mind off the surgery and to pick up craft supplies so I would be bored while off of work. I should mention it was an orthopedic surgery, so I didn't need to use crutches if I didn't feel the need and should be walking some. When we got to the craft store, not our first stop, my husband and best friend made me use one of the store's wheelchair. I was being stubborn because I could still walk, just not very fast or as long without breaks. Since I really didn't want to be in the chair, husband and friend decided to make a game out of it. Like, who could push me the fastest? Now you might think we are wrong, but let me state this was in the middle of the day on a Monday, so the store was not busy, and my husband and best friend would check the aisle to make sure that the coast was clear. After one of the speeding events, I was looking at something in an aisle, and my mom pulled husband and best friend away to look at something. It was something she thought I would like and was going to get it as a surprise. Well, I decided I didn't want whatever it was that I was looking at and stood up to put it back. This is when Karen appears berating me for using the wheelchair as a toy and how there are people who actually need it. I am calming, explain. I just had surgery and that is why I am using it. She then goes on and on about how she saw what my friends were doing and that I'm obviously lying. I explained that they were trying to make me feel better, and I would tell them to push me normally from now on. This did not appease Karen. She is still berating me. At this point, I roll up my pant leg and show her the compression bandages I am still wearing. She goes on about how that means nothing, and I could have just wrapped my knee as an excuse in case we were caught. And she bet the other people with me also have their knees wrapped. My group returns at this point and says the same thing as me. Karen is still not having it, and we're all lying. I look at my mom and ask if I can take off my bandages as they were supposed to be removed the next day. She says I really shouldn't, but she could rewrap it for me if needed. At this point, I take off the bandages before anyone can stop me showing Karen my knee in all its post-surgery glory. It was bruised, swollen, and crusty at the incision sites, and you still see the iodine on my skin. Karen's face goes white, and she looks like she is going to be sick. She starts stammering about how I didn't need to go that far. As my mom is rewrapping my knee, scolding me and Karen under her breath, I look at Karen and say, "What else did you want me to do? I told you. They told you. I showed you the bandages you wouldn't get off your high horse and insisted we were lying." At this point, a staff member comes to check if we need any help, and Karen runs for the door. We had a pleasant rest of our day and stopped for ice cream on the way home. This was about 10 years ago. I was hiking in the mountains of New Hampshire with my wife. It was typical mountain weather during the summer, meaning it was cold and snowing on the summits. We'd been on the summit of Madison and were descending towards the hut near the summit. Quick background. In the Nache Mountains, they're a network of huts where hikers can stay. The huts are staffed by college students, and they provide you a bed and a large bunk room and hot meal. And when I mean large bunk room, there are like 50 beds in the room. These huts are intended for people as a safe place to stay when doing long, multi-day hikes, but they can also be accessed from easier locations as a quick, fun getaway. Anyway, it was starting to get dark, and we were drawn slightly unprepared for the cold weather, it being July and all, and we started to get a little hypothermic. My wife was struggling to climb down, and we made the decision that I should hurry on ahead to the hut and alert the staff there that my wife might need some assistance. This wasn't the smartest idea, but it was starting to get dark. There was a storm coming, and we were worried that if we didn't alert someone, we might get stuck. I make it down to the hut and check in. We had reservations at the hut. Reservations were 100 required, no exceptions, so they knew I was coming. They welcomed me and direct me to the bunk room. I told them about my wife, who was still out there, and they said they would keep an eye out, and if she didn't come within the next 30 minutes, they would send out a team. While everyone had to have reservations to stay the night, there was no assigned bunks. You just picked one that was free. And since it was early still, 6 p.m. or so, all that meant was you tossed your stuff onto a bunk to claim it. I went into the bunk room and couldn't find any open bunks. Now, I'm slightly hypothermic and not thinking straight. So I drop my pack near the door and walk out into the dining room where I pour myself a mug of hot chocolate. I am slowly warming up when my wife walks in, maybe 15 minutes later. She was in bad shape, though, quite hypothermic and not at all able to think right. The staff get her blankets, convince her to get her damp clothes off, and pump her full of hot chocolate, and gave her a bowl of hot chicken broth they had going specifically for this purpose. While sitting there warming up, this woman sitting on the bench next to her says something like, "You saved some soup for the rest of us." You aren't the only one here, you know. We look at her like she has 10 heads. She had this gaggle of kids with her, and it was clear she got there earlier in the day via one of the direct routes from the valley. Otherwise, she wouldn't be looking as put together as the people that had been hiking for a couple of days to get there. I explained to Karen that my wife is hypothermic and needs to get warm. Karen kind of snuffs at me, but goes to deal with kids. Now that my wife is safe, I decide to try to figure out the bunk situation again. I go into the bunk room looking for any 2 open bunks to claim for the night, but again there are none to be found. I asked the hut staff what the deal was, and they said that although they were booked full for the night, they don't overbook, so there should be open bunks. And at least 10 people have yet to check in, so there really should be no reason to not find a bunk. After asking around about who has what bunk, the staff comes to Karen and asks her. She says, "Well, my kids weren't sure which bunk they want to sleep in, so they claimed a few different ones as if this would explain it." I'm sitting there next to her hearing this, and I'm flabbergasted. The nerve of this woman. I come to learn she had been since noon and was just hanging out, their kids irritating the staff all day. The staff guy asks her to have her kids pick on bunk because others need a place to sleep. Karen refuses and says that the kids can't possibly know where they want to sleep until it's actually bedtime. At this point, I am pissed off because I want to lay down for a bit before dinner is served. My wife is still feeling awful and wants to lay down, and here is Karen with her bratty kids refusing to give up space they aren't using. So I went into the bunk room and found a few bunks that, now that I know what is going on, are claimed with stuffed animals. Every normal hiker claims a bunk by putting a pack down on it. I, rightly, figured out that the stuffed animals and such were owned by the bratty kids, so I just took those and yeeted them into the dining room. Then I grabbed a bunk for my wife and one for myself and settled down to rest. About 5 minutes later, Karen comes in screaming at me for touching her kids' stuff and how dare I presume to decide where her kids were going to sleep and blah, 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 blah. I just said, "Shut up, lady." This was before the term Karen became a thing. Otherwise, I would have said that and closed my eye. Karen loses it and gets the staff. The staff look at her, look at the yeeted pile of stuffed animals and shrug. They said you can't claim multiple beds, but Karen wasn't having any of that. She sent her kids in top reclaim the multiple beds, but this was also when more hikers were coming in for the night, also somewhat hypothermic and starting to claim bunks. The kids lost their collective shit because they wanted to claim all the bunks and justified it by saying that they were there first because they arrived at noon. It took a while, but the staff finally convinced Karen that she needed to have her kids pick single bunks. It's impossible to kick someone out of a place like this. Since it's now somewhat dark, there is a storm, and the fastest way out is a 3-hour hike down a steep trail. So everyone was stuck with Karen and Brood. Oh, but the story doesn't end there. It turns out that Karen and her 4 kids only made reservations for 2 of them. Apparently, Karen decided on her own that kids under 10 don't need reservations. There is literally nothing on anything that says this. She just decided that. So when hikers with actual reservations came in, Karen got discovered that she was trying to basically steal accommodations for the night. The staff made her sleep in the dining room on the floor with 1 other kid. She had to choose who needed to sleep on the floor. There were not enough bunks for everyone since actual paying customers got the bunks. That was so satisfying to watch. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. So this just happened at my local grocery store, and I'm still fuming over it, so please forgive any typos or strong language that may be used. For reference, I have a hereditary connective tissue disorder, HEDS, that makes my tendons, ligaments, skin, some veins, and other connective tissue very loose and stretchy. This causes chronic pain, frequent dislocations, hyperextensions, and generally loose joints. I also have a degenerative disc disease and a comorbid form of dysautonomia, POTS, that makes my heart race every time I'm standing and can eventually cause me to pass out if I'm standing for too long. I can walk, but I have to use a cane when I do, because I can't walk very well or for very long. My knees don't like to support my body weight, and I can very easily dislocate a knee or a hip if I step ever so slightly wrong or happen to trip over anything. Because of this, I tend to use my wheelchair for longer outings. Thankfully, my local grocery store has those electric carts that customers can ride around on in the store, so I don't have to go to the trouble of hauling my wheelchair out of the car and can just use one of those. So I'm in the store doing some grocery shopping, minding my own business. I wasn't even really paying attention to the people around me because I just wanted to get what I needed and get out. One of the items I needed happened to be on the top shelf, so I got up out of the electric cart to get it off the shelf. The next thing I know, this damn Karen flips her shit because those carts are for people who need them, not kids who just want to take them for a joyride. I should add here that if you didn't know me or you've never seen me attempt to walk, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with me other than the way I walk. I look perfectly healthy to the casual observer. Now, I get this kind of thing all the time when I'm using one of the store's electric carts, so I just rolled my eyes and told her that I do need it and started to move along to get the rest of my shopping done. Surprise, surprise, that wasn't the end of it. The next thing I know, this witch's hands were on my shoulders and she had me a hefty shove and effing pushed me so hard I fell out of the cart. Now I'm just sitting there on the floor stunned while this woman yells obscenities at me in between generally incoherent ramblings about dumbass college kids. Thankfully, at this point, my boyfriend came back from grabbing milk. He rounded the corner into the aisle and saw what was going on, and from the look on his face, I'm surprised he didn't deck the witch. The subsequent argument went something like this. DF, excuse me, what the F do you think you're doing? Karen, this little brat thinks it's okay to steal carts from disabled folks. DF, he is disabled, you effing twat. Karen, I saw him get up to reach for something. He's obviously faking it. DF, you thick mother tucker. You think just because he can stand means he doesn't need a cart? And you think that gives you the right to assault him? What the F is wrong with you? Boyfriend then proceeds to ask me if I want him to call the cops. Lady starts freaking out over the possibility of actual real live assault charges. And I guess the commotion was enough that at that point, one of the store's managers decided to get involved. He sees me still on the floor, asks what's going on, and when my boyfriend explained what had happened, also asked me if I wanted to call the authorities. At this point, I had had enough, was pretty shaken up and on the verge of crying, which I don't like to do in public, and just wanted to go home. At the end of all this, the store manager comped my groceries, banned Karen from the store, and told me he would make sure that all the other stores from the chain that were in the area did too. I've had people give me the side eye or go so far as to chide me for using the store's electric carts before, but I have never had anyone put their hands on me until now. It makes me so mad because this woman literally just saw me stand up to reach something, and apparently that was reason enough for her to feel the need to physically remove me from the mobility aid I was using. Now, like I said, to the casual observer, I don't look disabled. Unless you saw me walking or saw me dislocate something, you probably wouldn't know there was anything wrong with me. It just makes me so angry because people ought to know that invisible illnesses exist and that not all disabilities can be outwardly seen. Also, just because someone can stand up doesn't mean they don't need a wheelchair. It's not like only people who are paralyzed have the right to use one. And even if I was just a dumbass college kid taking an electric cart for a spin, that still doesn't give someone the right to push me out of it. If you think I shouldn't be using it, go get a manager or something. Or better yet, mind your own damn business and finish your own damn shopping. I shouldn't have to explain my disability to everyone who sees me using a mobility aid. That happens a lot, even when I'm just using my cane. Random strangers will ask me what happened or how I hurt myself. My go-to-answer shutdown for that now is I was born. And I especially shouldn't have to fear for my physical safety every time I need to go grocery shopping. An entitled Karen asked me for my tip back. I gave it back to her cuz I don't want dirty money in my hands. This is my very first post, and I must warn you, it's long and a doozy, which I apologize for. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea, coffee, or water, and enjoy this roller coaster of a story as I tell you my experience from 3.5 months ago, because damn it, I think this is the embodiment of crazy and Karen attitude, a caritude, if you will. Now, I shall provide context before I start. Buckle up, peeps. If you stick around, I'll give you cookies, bunnies, or flowers. So I, 21 female, was at a new place that is currently opened. Therefore, I was new to working in this establishment. I've been working as a waitress for 2 years beforehand, and then I came here. It was currently open for only 2 months when this story happened, and I was still getting used to it. For context, I work as a waitress at an arcade that also has a restaurant. We serve many meals, and the arcade restaurant provides play cards, not the actual name, but I don't wish to get fired for saying where I work, which I will shorten its name to PCs and PC, and people are allowed to take their drinks to the arcade area, as long as they don't leave the establishment. Servers are allowed to either sell you or recharge you a PC, or even multiple at once. If you're a member of the establishment's app, you can get points in your PC for eating at the restaurant, and a server will gladly swipe your PC for your points to be registered. I will be using a fake name for myself and the cast. Meggie Me. EK, entitled Karen, late 60s, female. Bert, Manager 1. Susan, Manager 2. Jake, Manager 3. Cook, Manager 4. Emoji, host, he likes emojis. On with the story, yay. It was a nice Friday morning, and it got completely ruined when Emoji approached me about EK. Emoji, hey, Meggie, I know your section is from 595 to 597. and 586 to 588, but I sat you a guest on table 594. I'll warn you right now. Talk to a manager because she'll bring hell upon you, me. She can't be that bad emoji. Try again, sweetie. She wanted that whole booth over there because she doesn't want to be around people. But that section is closed. I can't just give her a whole booth that only provides tables for 4 to 6 people. And that is not your area, me. Okay, so, Corinne, got it? Thanks for the heads up. I go to introduce myself, and as I'm doing so, I only managed to say hi, mine, before she cut me off. She goes, can me and my 2 grandchildren sit there? We don't want to be next to people, and we're next to people. I calmly explained that we cannot do that, and that we sat her in a booth that has enough space between a table of 2 people and the party I was serving was 2 tables away. She frowns and asks something about, can't you accommodate the customer? And I tell her, still politely but firmly, that we had accommodated her enough and that I was already attending her off my section. She still didn't let me introduce myself when she already gives me the order for herself and her 2 grandkids, stating she was starving, the kids were starving even more, and that I needed to hurry with the drinks because they don't have enough energy. I politely smiled, and as I walked away, a miracle happened. There, upon my eyesight and vision near the kitchen expo, was Bert. Hooray for me! Me. Bert, I must warn you right now. If the guest in table 594 complains about anything, just know she was difficult with emoji and was kind of rude with me. You see, proceeds to explain everything that happened in a comedic and dramatic type of way, while still saying it's serious enough for him to understand. Bert, yikes, so she's a Karen. Got it. If she's acting difficult or tells you anything you don't like, come to either me, Susan, or Jake, okay? I have a break soon, but I'll let the others know. Cook will be too busy taking care of the kitchen. Me, Bert, you're the best, and I love you. Bert, who doesn't, Maggie? Who doesn't? Me, if you don't shut the Karen up. Bert, ouch. Honestly, same in your shoes. When I bring EK and her grandkids, 12 female and 9 or 10 male, her drinks, she tells me about the points in her PC. She didn't use the term points. Important for later. I tell her I didn't understand what she was talking about, mostly because she referred to the points as money, which I didn't know what she meant. And I told her that I was new, and since I didn't understand her, I would talk to a manager to do that for her once she was ready to close her tab. I leave her at that cuz, thankfully the party table was calling for me, thank the burger lord, and I went to serve them. In the meantime, some other servers bring EK's grandkids meals, seeing as I was waitressing on another big table. I was on my way to the bar to pick up a drink when EK stopped me. EK. I think you forgot to mark out my food. Me. No, ma'am. The kids' meals usually come out beforehand. I assure you, your meal will come out shortly, as I know the kitchen is not as occupied today. Her food came out 2 minutes later, and I was thanking the hot dog lord this time since she complained about her food missing a few minutes past and she asked me for the tab. I politely looked for it. She gave me a $6 tip in cash. I took her to the big tablet where I was about to swipe her card, and then she stopped, reminding me about what she told me earlier, getting money for eating. I nod and tell her I'll do that, but let me swipe your card, please. I swiped it 6 times, since the system was not reading it correctly. I had swiped it too fast for it to recognize her card. EK, what do you think you're doing? If you swipe that many times, my card will get blocked. Me. Oh, no, ma'am. It just didn't read it correctly, as I swiped too fast. Please don't worry. Even if it read it many times, there will only be one transaction, and the rest will get voided, meaning that it will not charge you from the extra swipe. Now, please stay in this corner as I go to host to call me a manager that can help me with the offer you explained to me. I'll be waiting there to explain when he or she comes and settles something. EK, fine. I give her the voucher, explain where to sign after solving the issue, go towards Emoji. Emoji calls a manager, and the only one available is Susan, who's finishing something up in the other side of the establishment. Cook was to arrive later. Bert wasn't done with his break yet, and Jake was solving something else in his office. I wait for Susan promptly around 3 minutes while I talk to Emoji about when the one who'll take my section arrives, when I planned on taking a break, and he was planning of when to cut me off so I had time to pick up my section. All of a sudden, I see EK and her grandkids walk away. I asked if she was okay and if she still wanted her tab open, thinking she was taking them to the bathroom while they waited, which is understandable as it's on the other side of the establishment as well. But she ignored me, shrug, and see my party table calling for me. So I go to them, give them their check, close the case tab since she left her signed voucher, and $5 tip. She took back $1, there while she ignored me. Probably not the best idea, but I didn't know what to do. I've learned from this. Close the party check and guess who comes back. If you guessed EK and/or Susan, you're the winner. Both of them came in, and Susan takes over the big tablet when she notices EK's check is closed. Susan: Meggie, why did you close her tab? Me: I waited by host for you, Susan, and told her to stay here. When I saw her walking away, I asked if she wanted her tab open. She ignored me, and her voucher was signed, which wasn't signed when I waited by host for a manager. Another server had told me she walked away, and since I had everything I needed to close her tab, I closed it. EK: Well, you shouldn't have closed it. Are you a little loose-screwed on your head? I blink, taken aback by this statement. Now I won't get my points. Me: You said money earlier, ma'am? EK: I got confused, but you should have known what I meant. Now I won't get my points. Susan explains that I'm new, that we didn't cover that in our training 100, so it could be that I got it mixed up, and that I couldn't exactly leave her as a walkout if I had her signed voucher, and then proceeded to invite her to a free $30 recharge. EK to Susan: I genuinely don't know why you hired her. And I don't know how she wasn't fired yet. She was bad at customer service, didn't listen when a customer asked for a manager, and swiped my card like 6 times. If my card gets blocked, I'm suing her and making her pay for all of the money in my bank account. Me, who already had it up to here and couldn't take it anymore. Ma'am, I politely explained that your card was only read once because our system didn't read it the first 5 times. Susan, swatting my thigh subtly with her hand. Meggie, shut. Just shh. I got this. EK: I feel repulsed just looking at her. It's making me want to loose my appetite. She doesn't deserve the money she gets here. You know what? Give me back my money. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, Gladly, ma'am. I don't need your $5, and hand the $5 bill in her hand, putting my wallet in the table to organize it again, seeing as some of my money fell out, and it was being shown to EK accidental. EK: I'm sorry, but you don't deserve it. You're the worst server I've ever met, and I don't think you're in the right job field. Try being in the back of a shoe store so you don't treat people as rudely as you did me. You're a bad person, and I hope bad things happen to you in this job. Me looking at and whispering to Susan, I'm done here. If she's gonna insult me, I might as well walk away. I have a new table to attend. Susan: No, you're coming with me. EK leaves the establishment. I follow Susan and stop to let my table know that I will be right back. I have an issue to attend to, but I'll be coming here soon as I may. Susan takes me towards Jake and Cook, asking for what happened. I won't say she is in the right, but I will give her credit. You should have waited for a manager to help if you didn't know how to do something. I replied, and I did. I explained to her, Jake and Cook, how horrid she was to me and Emoji, how she didn't let me do my job the right way, and I started tearing up. She made me have a bad day, and insulting me was just the cherry on top to my mild anxiety. I only work as a waitress since I've noticed it helped me various times come out of my shell. Bert walks back from his break and sees me, asking what happened. Susan: A guest complained about her, insulted her in her face. It was ugly. Jake: Do you need a bathroom break, Meggie? You're crying. Then Bert looks at me, asking, was it the same guest you told me about earlier? Susan, Jake, and Cook whip their heads towards him in shock, then at me, in which I nod. Susan: That was the same lady. Oh, no wonder Emoji told me we had a wild one. I'm so sorry. Now go to the bathroom, clean yourself up, and I'll let your table know you'll be back shortly. Don't worry about your dirty tables. I'll tell a busser to set them up for you. I tell her the table already knows I would be coming to them later. I cried a bit in the bathroom, and a guest saw me, hugged and comforted me, and then the guests at the new table saw me teary-eyed and offered hugs as well. Apparently, EK came back with the kids after my shift was over and complained about how her next $30 recharge should be paid by me to make up for the bad time she had. Bert had to kick her out of the establishment for the night because she caused a second tantrum when they, as in the managers, refused to take her offer of taking the $30 off my paycheck to recharge her PC a second time. I, 33F, going to preface this by saying my 6-year-old daughter's father, 37, I'm going to call him Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. We had a one-night stand. I don't like people calling him my ex, since it makes it seem we had some kind of emotional attachment. He was never involved after I told him I was pregnant, and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, but I decided to raise my child alone since I have enough money to raise her without child support. For the whole pregnancy in the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I didn't do what he wanted, he sued and was told no, he was not getting parental rights. He was given the offer to pay child support, and then we can revisit giving him actual rights, but he has refused. He has the money, much more than me, but he refuses. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner, no child support needed, with the agreement anything legal, medical, or educational will not involve him. He pushed the boundaries, and we had a fallout. After that, we didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner. And finding out Jeff is married and had never told his family he had a child. It was great to be judged by a bunch of strangers. It was uncomfortable the whole time. I'm going to use fake names, but let's say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabrielle. Not the actual name she used, but it was that different to my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter or parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The whole time she pretty much ignored me, but Katie didn't seem nervous, so I decided to just bid my time. I hit my limit when my daughter said she needed the bathroom and the stranger went, "Oh, Gaby, you need potty. Let mommy change you." My daughter hasn't worn diapers in a while now, and she's more than capable of going alone to the bathroom. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman starting wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl had to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and hold her, consoling her and saying that we weren't leaving and for her to calm down like she was the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he better explain or I would be calling the police. He asked me to speak in private in another room and that I could just leave my daughter with his parents. No way that would ever happen. Katie's godparents took her with them despite the wife having a full meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not going to give specific details on that. All I'll say it was sudden and nobody's fault. And as I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues to his wife. Apparently, he had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass their lost child would help his wife, without telling me. And that's why he wanted visitations and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what was his plan when his wife heals. His response was disgusting. "Well, I'll just send Katie back with you and it will be just like before." I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional, not feeding her delusion. And I would not let that woman within miles from my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and didn't know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him, but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family. It's my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I'm making sure he never has contact with my child. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him. My daughter and I are doing a small travel vacation. This isn't an update, just something I feel needs to be said. My daughter is set for life monetarily. She has a trust and I make really good money in my position. If she was 18 right now, I could put her through college without a loan. She doesn't need child support for quality of life. If I could get child support and never worry about her father trying something, I would be suing him in a heartbeat. But after talking to a lawyer and realizing the risk, I've taken the decision that child support or possible inheritance is not worth my child's safety. Safety is always first. 1/6/2024. Hey everyone. Happy New Year's. This isn't so much a real update as just letting people know we are home and safe. My daughter is spending the rest of her vacation with her godparent on another trip while I work on things. Moving might be something I'll be looking into, though that is a long-term plan considering all it takes. I won't share too many details on what my lawyer is going to be doing, but we are absolutely going to push for an erupt. I might not post for some time. At least, not until things settle. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.